All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 151. Sorry, it's been a few weeks since I was able to record. Things have been a little crazy, but lots of exciting football topics to cover today. As I'm sitting here, we are currently 1 week out from the Pro Football Hall of Fame game. So a real NFL game, even though it's like technically a fake football game, it's still two NFL teams playing against each other. So very excited for that. Other than football, I feel like, obviously we have MLB season still going on, but we do have the Olympics coming up. I'm actually wearing a U.S. Olympic team. I don't know if you can see it if you're on the YouTube, a U.S. Olympic team crew neck right now, because I'm feeling so pumped for the Olympics this year, specifically gymnastics, swimming, track and field, volleyball, like the sports that I don't usually get to watch very much. Very excited to watch this year. So that should be fun in the coming weeks. But yeah, other than that, we've just got a ton of random football topics to cover, some Browns related, some not Browns related. So I think we should probably just jump right into it. The first two topics I want to cover are actually two guests on a different podcast, obviously not my podcast, but two guests recently on Part of My Take that I wanted to discuss some of the conversations and topics surrounding their appearances, because they're both very relevant to the Browns, which is always fun. The first is none other than Baker Mayfield. He was on Part of My Take. This might have been a week or two ago at this point, but I listened to his entire interview and really enjoyed it. I felt like my overall takeaway from listening to him talk on that was that he definitely showed a lot of growth. And I feel like this is such a reminder for just everyone about these athletes come into the league at such a young age. They're given so much money, so much opportunity, so many different people in their ears, and it can really affect them and how they think and how they go about their careers. And sometimes it just takes time and like learning life in order to have those experiences bring you some maturity and some growth. And look, that is true for literally everyone in any part of life in their careers. Just as you get older, you just start to make sense of things in life a little bit more and have some more perspective. But these guys are just doing it on a national spotlight. So I try to always have some level of empathy for that. But it was good to see. I feel like that Baker really has thought about a lot of the things he said, decisions he made during that time, and how he's reflected on them now. I think the biggest one that he said is, yeah, I probably should have gotten surgery during the 2021 season. He mentioned that he didn't for a couple reasons. One, he's just kind of a stubborn guy, I think, in general. Like, especially, I think a lot of athletes are that way. They're like, no, I'm just going to tough through this because I need to be out there playing. And I'm sure some level of that was being concerned about the future of his career and thinking, I got to be out there. Additionally, he also mentioned that playing in a city like Cleveland, and I don't think he said this to blame Cleveland. A lot of people were kind of taking it that way. I don't think it was intentional to blame Cleveland. I think it was more saying like, Cleveland is this gritty city, what people consider to be a blue collar city. And he kind of wanted to adopt the mindset of the people here and be like, I'm going to tough this out. I'm going to fight through, and I'm going to make sure that I am out there on that field for this team, because that's what the people in Northeast Ohio do. They tough it out and they fight. And that was kind of like the mindset that he was adopting. So, hindsight is 2020. He should have gotten surgery when things were bad, because clearly it affected his play so deeply that it just was not going to allow him to be the quarterback that they needed that season. It makes you wonder how different things would have been, but I still have to believe that regardless, that front office, I don't think, was fully committed to Baker. I think regardless of what happened that season, they were going to be at least having a look in the rest of the market to see what they could get. because I don't think even before that they were 100% fully committed and thought that Baker Mayfield was this ceiling raiser that was going to do, what they wanted. He didn't say that he had a bunch of regrets from his time in Cleveland, but I feel like that was more in the vein of, I don't live life, with all of these regrets, looking back and wishing I would have done X, Y, Z, all these different things differently. He's just kind of happy that those experiences pushed him to be the person and the player that he is now. And, I think even as bad as things were in Carolina, that gave him some perspective for him to then bounce back in LA and then have an opportunity to fight for the job in Tampa, knowing that, he was either going to get the job and then maybe be able to get an additional contract, or he was going to be a career backup for the rest of his time in the league. So I think when you get knocked down a few pegs, it definitely gives you some perspective, and it really feels like he has that. I'm always happy to see guys be able to turn their careers around like that. Even though it didn't work out here in Cleveland, I don't have, this everlasting, horrible ill will for Baker. I'm happy to see that he mentally is in a good place and, got himself a contract that at one point, I and many other people did not think he was going to be able to turn around and get, but he definitely went out and proved people wrong. The other PMT, part of my take podcast guest I wanted to discuss quickly is Mike Vrabel. So he went on and was talking about kind of his role with the Browns, what it's going to look like this season, why he took the position. I thought it was pretty interesting. I think the biggest note from all of that was that he is not going to be there on game days, which I was a little shocked to hear because I felt like maybe they wanted to use him as this game day motivator type guy, but it feels like it's going to be a lot more during the week behind the scenes than obviously actual game days. His goal, he said, in taking this job was definitely to learn from Kevin, and specifically for him as a head coach, being a more defensive-minded guy, he wanted to be around an offense. He didn't say this, but I'm assuming an analytically minded offense to bring him some different perspective, since he's more of a classic football guy, that he wanted to be challenged in a lot of ways. And he said he basically came to learn, which I think is a real testament to how people outside of the organization in Cleveland look at this Cleveland Browns team and the front office and the coaching staff, on that he feels like he can gain some value in it for, his future and the coming seasons. So I thought that was a really cool perspective to hear. He also mentioned that he was second to Harbaugh in the job for the Chargers, which everyone kind of figured, but was interesting to hear him actually say that, because a lot of times, he mentioned this too, a lot of times you don't get to hear if you were second, third, fourth, where you were in the running. They just honestly don't talk to you after they pick someone else, but they actually called him and said, hey, we have this opportunity to sign Harbaugh. We're going to do it. Really sorry. So that was, I think, good closure for him to be able to have that conversation that a lot of guys don't get to get. So yeah, I'm super interested to hear what different perspectives he's going to bring in working with Kevin and the offense, because he might be able to bring a different mindset, a different way of thinking that they just haven't had within that organization, since everyone, for the most part in the past, has been more analytically minded. So I am really looking forward to see what kind of growth he brings, but very interesting role to not have him be like a regular on the sideline for game days. Okay, one other kind of pop culture world topic to get into was wide receiver on Netflix. I don't know if you guys had the chance to watch that. Came out a couple weeks ago. Featured, actually, it's just called Receiver, I think, not Wide Receiver. Pretty sure it was just Receiver on Netflix. So they featured a couple different guys. It was one tight end, George Kittle. Then they featured Debo, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Davante Adams, and the last one was Justin Jefferson. I, for some reason, feel like they didn't feature that much of Justin Jefferson, and I like keep forgetting that he was in it. But some of my biggest takeaways, things I enjoyed the most watching it, I thought with George, I really enjoy watching his personality. I loved all of the different scenes they showed with him and Claire. The scene that they showed with his grandma when she came, his 101-year-old grandma, when she came to a game for the first time. What a powerhouse. I thought that was really cool. I really enjoy anytime you get sports and, kind of this pop culture world of getting to show them with their families in their regular lives, any off-season content. Like, I really enjoy that because I think it gives a ton of perspective to fans on what their lives are really like, because we see them mostly on Sundays and don't really know what goes on in their minds and with their families the rest of the time. And I think it's a reminder of how many sacrifices the people in their lives make for them to be able to do this at the level that they do it. Like, Claire has done so much for George and all of that, and just keeping things together during the season, that I think is really always cool to see. For Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think my favorite thing in all of it was his German mother. She was iconic. I was obsessed with her and wish we had more content of her. I feel like they showed more of his dad, who was previously some type of like bodybuilder, but I enjoyed the content with his mom a lot. They showed a little bit of that his brother also plays in the NFL, was on the Bears last year. I don't know if he might still be on the Bears this year, but I thought they could have maybe showed a little bit more of that, but it was definitely interesting. Shows you genetics are, every time they're siblings, I'm like, yeah, genetics matter. Big factor. Debo and Justin Jefferson, I thought for me were the two stories that I didn't enjoy watching as much. I think that was because they did deal with some injuries throughout the season, and it felt like their story arc on the show really focused on those injuries and didn't focus as much on some of the other interesting dynamics that I liked watching in the show with, on the field stuff, families, those things. Like, I felt like it was pretty injury centric. But I did enjoy, a big feature of Debo's story being earlier in the season with the Browns game. They showed like the scuffle on the sidelines. Like, that did seem to be like a decent highlight of the season. I guess a low light for them of the season, because they went to go on a little bit of a tough run for a few weeks after that. But I just enjoyed having a little Browns feature for a moment. And then Davante Adams, I personally think that was the most fascinating part of the entire thing to me, most interesting, because that man hated playing with Jimmy G. He did not enjoy being out there with that man. And obviously he came to Vegas thinking he was going to play with Derek Carr. That was the mindset, his old buddy. It didn't end up working out that way. He ended up playing with Jimmy G, and, was not happy. They were not clicking at any point in time. There were definitely rumblings throughout the season of how Davante Adams was feeling. There were a couple quotes that he gave that we saw, and they did highlight in the show too about, if I'm not doing well, then like the team's not doing well. And people took that as kind of a bit of a selfish quote. I think what I found interesting about that dynamic is the public mindset during all of that was that the Raiders' problems really revolved a lot around Josh McDaniels, and I felt like that was not the narrative that was spun in receiver as much. I feel like it was much more put on Jimmy G in the eyes of Davante Adams. I just thought that was interesting that it wasn't as publicly shown that way at the time. But, narratives kind of just happen. A quote gets out there and then people kind of run with it. So, not that I think McDaniels was like, Davante Adams loved him. It just felt like there was a lot more Jimmy G than we realized. And then obviously once they fired McDaniels, made the quarterback change, things were really rejuvenated there, and the team was much more excited. So will be interesting to see what that organization looks like this year, because it was sad to watch, honestly. I'm like, this is probably what it felt like to be on the Browns for like a long time, which it's tough to watch, and you just feel like week in, week out, those guys are getting beat up and they're losing again and again and again. That's just it's gotta be a hard way to have your career go, for sure. Okay, so we're gonna switch up to some Browns topics now. We're gonna start with some contract stuff that has happened over the last couple weeks since I recorded. As you guys know, big special teams girl over here. Love special teams, thoroughly enjoy talking about it. So it was a big moment for those of us who really love special teams. Dustin Hopkins, he signed a 3-year, $15.9 million deal with the Browns. I was pretty shocked by this, to be honest. I felt like so much of the conversation at that moment was revolving around Amari Cooper, which I'm going to get to. But, the Browns just find other ways to keep us talking and do things that we didn't expect. I think it does really show how valuable it is to have a consistent guy at the position, and how much it kept that team in games last year where it felt like, okay, if you just get to this certain yard line, like it's money every time he's going to make it. That's a huge deal to have. I think it mentally switches what you can do as an offense. You feel more confident in, how you can run your offense with a certain amount of time left on the clock. I think it makes you more aggressive as a team, maybe at the end of halves, where you can get some extra points. I feel like it does matter, especially for how many years this team has had kicking woes. And you go from what happened with Cade York right before that, and it really hurt the team, obviously on the scoreboard, but also mentally, and how they were able to position themselves in games that I think they got someone that they believed in and they really want to hold on to it. So very, very happy to see that, for sure. And then this kind of created conversation like, wow, they got this kicker contract done, but they still haven't figured out what's going on with Amari Cooper, their top wide receiver on the team. And lo and behold, I think this was a couple days ago now, it came out that they have reworked Amari Cooper's deal. So, no extension and additional years on it, but basically he's getting a $5 million raise under his renegotiated contract. His original $20 million is fully guaranteed. Look, I think this is great for the Browns because Jimmy is always willing to open up his pockets and get some more money out there, but not having the additional years definitely gives them as an organization some flexibility on what they want to do for the future. Do they want to go after a guy like T. Higgins? Is Jerry Jeudy going to have this breakout season where you want him to be kind of more of your focus, and then you go and bring in some other additional talent? Is Elijah Moore going to be more of a star? There's so many directions that group can go this season that I think the Browns just want their flexibility to know that in the future they can pivot just based on how the season goes. So I think from the Browns perspective, this is a huge win for Amari. He gets some extra money, which is, I'm sure great in his mind. But I think he definitely probably wanted those additional years to just make him a little more confident at his age, that he's going to be in a bit of a longer term deal. So, chances are he's going to be able to hit free agency this next off season, and really curious to see what type of opportunities are out there for him. If he has another season like he's had the past few years, I think there's going to be a lot of teams certainly interested in what he can do. Also, one other Amari Cooper note, I saw this today. The NFL is slowly releasing their NFL Top 100, which I personally love to get mad at rankings. I think it's one of my favorite things to do. It is a bit of a personality trait of mine just to get angry when my team and players aren't ranked higher. But the first player I've noticed, I think they've only gotten down to like the 50s maybe, when I have been looking at it earlier today. But the only Browns player I've seen so far is Amari Cooper at 70 in the top 100. So happy to have him on the list. Very well deserved, highly underrated receiver in this league. Don't know where we would be without him in these last few years. He has been Mr. Consistent, and very appreciative for how we were able to get him from Dallas and what he has done here. So Always good stuff. Okay, so some Browns news from today, actually, that happened that I've been kind of tracking throughout the day. Number one, Kevin Stefanski spoke to the media because they are back for training camp. So we'll be getting lots of quotes in the next couple weeks, which I love. He says that he's going to be retaining play calling duties, which I think was a big question for a lot of people. He pretty much left it open-ended over, towards the end of last season, especially after the Dorsey hiring, kind of was like, we're just going to see how it goes and we'll figure it out from there. He said he's going to continue to call plays. I am not shocked by this. I think this makes the most sense. I think he has proven to be a great play caller, and it would be, after what he did last year, a little bit crazy to move on from that. I think, as always, and as it has been since Kevin Stefanski has been here, play calling is an extremely collaborative experience between the offensive coaching staff. That's why he brought in a guy like Ken Dorsey to give him some different perspectives, to share his mindset and his just offensive attitude that he has. And I think that is going to continue to be how it will work. It's not just going to be Kevin out there being like, this is how we do things. I think he wants to evolve. He wants to get the best out of Deshaun Watson, and I think he knows Ken Dorsey can do that, and is going to be taking a lot from him as he decides to call plays this season. So I think this is only a good thing in my mind, but that should not surprise any of you who have been listening to this for a while. I obviously appreciate the guy and what he's done for this team. Other news is some kind of injury surgery news. So placed on the NFI, which is the non-football injury list, Nyheim Hines and Greg Newsome, who recently had hamstring surgery. So thought that was a little bit interesting. There's been rumblings, obviously, on the internet of something going on with him injury-wise. I think maybe Kevin went on a radio show and said something about it. But yeah, you just have to hope, obviously, he'll be back for week 1. Who knows? But I think that one was a little bit tough to see for people. And then on the PUP list, which is a little bit more relevant with the different names on it, we have D'Anthony Bell, Nick Chubb, not shocking, Jack Conklin, not shocking, Jedrick, and the last one that I was surprised by, Dalvin Tomlinson. So he is supposed to get knee surgery soon, so he has not gotten knee surgery yet. Definitely was not prepared to see this one. It was a bit of a surprise and does leave me concerned, especially just with the defensive tackle position in general and how this team has been lacking with it. You just have to hope that it's not something too serious. I was trying to find more details on it today and I wasn't able to find a ton, so I might have just not been able to find it, but hoping that we'll know more over the coming weeks on like his availability and when he's supposed to be ready. So we shall see there. Okay, so that is all I have for you guys today. Lots of football, as always. Like I mentioned, we have 1 week till the Hall of Fame game, and we are going to be in full gear here with, things happening at the Greenbrier, things happening in training camp, not too far away from preseason games. Like, those are just a couple weeks away at this point. So I personally am super excited for football to be back. It does kind of feel like the summer flew by. I know I am always like, I want football back. But now that's here, I'm like, oh my God, it's already here. I can't believe it already happened. So super excited. And we'll be ramping up on here with more conversations. So thank you guys so much for listening. I very much appreciate it. If you could subscribe on the YouTube, if you're watching there, leave a comment of, what you're looking forward to this football season, or just thoughts on some of the topics I discussed today. Very much always appreciate the comments. Please leave a review or rating on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts. I appreciate you all. Football is back. Thank you so much, and go Browns.